Welcome back. Today, I'm going to be going over this exponential SAT question. And once again, thanks to Aniko.ai for providing this specific question in their free resources tab. But before I dive into the explanation, please give this a try yourself. Okay, so here we have two functions, f of x and g of x, where x is greater than or equal to 0. The question asks us, which of the following equations displays, as a constant or coefficient, the maximum value of the function it defines? Right, again, where x is greater than or equal to 0. So I think the most common issue with this problem is that people don't understand what it's saying, right? Especially this part. But I'm going to get to that later. Let's first focus on uh, the functions themselves. So here we have f of x and g of x. And because, we have access to Desmos here, what I'm going to do is type both of these, right, into Desmos. So that is f of x. And then, of course, we also have g of x. Okay, so right away, when you type these functions in, what you're going to actually realize is that both of them are going to be the same exact graph, right? And if you don't kind of see that, well, you know, here, right, you can see the purple and black are the same thing, right? So that tells us that f of x is equal to g of x, right? And before we move on, I'm actually going to show you mathematically that's actually true, right? Here, 64, right, times 4 over 5 to the x minus 2. If you go back to our exponent properties, right, you can take this and split this up into 4/5 to the x and then 4/5 to the negative 2, right? Because eventually, if you multiply these two, then you're just going to be adding the exponents, and x plus negative 2 is just x minus 2, right? Well, if you do that, right, then you get 64 times all of this, right? 64 times all of this. Well, what is 4 over 5? What's 4/5 to the negative 2? Well, that's just going to be 5 over 4 squared, right? Because that negative means that you have to flip the fraction, but that squared is still going to be there, right? So here we have 64, 5 over 4 squared, and then times that 4 over 5 x. What you'll realize is that's the exact same thing as g of x, right? So here f of x equals g of x. The only difference, right, is that they're represented differently, right? So now that we've kind of established the same function, let's kind of focus on what the problem is asking us to do, right? So we have to first find the maximum value of the function, right, where x is greater than or equal to 0. What is the max value of this function where x is greater than or equal to 0? Well, if x has to be greater than 0, right, you'll see that this function is actually decreasing after the value of 0, right? From here to like all the way here, it's decreasing, right? You can see that the y value there is decreasing. So then the max value has to be at x equals 0, right? Because it's going to decrease after that, right? So the max value has to be at the initials, at the start. In this case, what is the value of f of x at 0? Well, if you just tap the graph, right, it's 0, comma 100. So the max value of f of x, right, is 100. And of course, that's also the max value for g of x because they're the same function, right? And again, if you are on time and you don't want to go based on the graph, you can always just type in like f of 0, right, on Desmos, and it'll still give you 100, right? And just to double check, you can also type in g of 0, right, and that'll also give you 100. But now we know the max value is 100, right? So the maximum value, we found that out, right? Okay, so now, this is the tricky part. Which of the following equation displays as a constant or coefficient the maximum value? So we know the maximum value is 100. Let's look at f of x first, right? Does f of x, right, display that value of 100 anywhere in this equation? No, right? Because as a constant or coefficient, no, right? Because here we have 64. That's not 100. So therefore, option 1 does not do that. What about option 2? Does it display 100 as a constant or coefficient? Well, what is the coefficient for g of x? The coefficient for g of x is anything here, right? Right? Anything before this exponential part. Well, what is 64 times 5 over 4 squared? If you put that into decimals, you get 100. So this actually equals 100, right? If you were to rewrite g of x, it would give you 100 times 4 over 5 to the x. Well, now this does display the maximum value, right? Because the maximum value is 100, and this displays 100, right? So therefore, g of x does display the maximum value, right? And of course, that's going to be 2 only, which is going to be answer choice B. Okay, so the key thing to do in these types of problems, right, these constant coefficient problems or displayed as a constant coefficient, you have to first find a maximum value or whatever value they're asking for, right? Look at the condition, right? And then from there, right, once you find the maximum value for that given condition, just look at the equation, right? F of x obviously doesn't have a maximum value because it is a 64. G of x, some people think it doesn't because you don't see 100 right away. But if you multiply these coefficients together, it will give you 100, right? And yeah, that's it. That's how you do this problem. I hope this made sense. If it didn't, please leave any questions you have down in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.